entire Aubrey Marcus cosmic throuple situation is giving us women and some men a very great lesson and an example of what happens when women override their natural biological instincts and then end up in horrible situations like this. And in this video, because so many of you have sent me messages about it, we're going to be talking, or at least I'm going to be giving my opinion about this whole Aubrey Marcus and his wife now bringing a third person into the relationship, even though they were monogamous, and then they're trying to shove this radical monogamy thing down our throat, which is not a thing. Hi, my name is Amanda Abeya. Welcome to this channel where we talk about how to manifest what you want in life without all the extra stress, chaos, and drama that most people are accustomed to. Lately, we've been talking a lot about relationship dynamics and what that looks like, which is why a lot of you have asked me to do some commentary on this particular situation. So if that's something that you're interested in, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we have coming out on this channel. And all the free resources and ways to work with me and all that stuff will be in the description below. So, oh my God, there's so much that I want to say about this because my husband and I sat down this weekend to watch the Aubrey Marcus interview that the whole internet and spiritual community is talking about. We got halfway through it and had to stop because it was so cringy, and our alarm bells, both of our alarm bells, mine as a woman, my alarm bells were going off for the women in this situation, and my husband was watching this, and he's done a lot of work around like healthy masculinity and stuff like that. And he's like, that dude is all the way off. Like, this is not normal behavior for a masculine man. And he's putting these women in a horrible situation, above all his wife, in a horrible situation. So we only got to watch about halfway of the actual interview. And from then we went to go see commentaries and things like that so that we could just see clips because we literally could not stomach it anymore, which is part of what you guys have expressed to me, that your own alarm bells are going off. So for those of you who don't know what's going on, Aubrey Marcus is a well-known person in the spirituality space, in the wellness space, and he is pretty infamous for having been polyamorous for a long time. He's talked about it since forever. He's always had an issue with monogamy. We all know it. From there, he meets his current wife, Vailana, and suddenly he's monogamous, right? Where he's told the world, I've left polyamory behind and now I am monogamous. His wife, for many years, has been saying that for her, she wants to be monogamous, she wants to be in a monogamous relationship, and now here comes Aubrey Marcus with a podcast with his wife on the podcast, and now a third woman who is much younger than them in this now relationship constellation, as they are calling it. So it's very cringy. If you want to watch the interview, go watch it. But chances are that if you watch me on this channel, you are fans of monogamy. And that is what you desire, which is totally fine. So I'm going to start going just to the parts that really stuck out to us and the things that, oh my God, it was just one red flag after another. And the other thing that I'm going to say is that while this was coming out, I was actually in the process of reading a book called The Male Brain. I was doing some research for this channel and some stuff that I'm working on behind the scenes for you guys. So I was in the middle of reading this Male Brain book while this interview came out in the world. So it gave me some very interesting context in terms of what might be happening here and why those women are not in a good situation, and how everybody is basically not functioning at their healthiest. Let's put it that way. And one more thing that I want to say about this for context. So although I am not polyamorous, I have never been polyamorous, I have no interest in being polyamorous, neither does my husband, I do know people who have been polyamorous, and I actually had a client back when I was doing business coaching a few years ago who was polyamorous, and I helped her put a program together, and I learned a lot about polyamory from her and what it could look like. I'm still totally not interested in it. However, I could see why some people would want to do it or want to partake in that, or that's their experience. that they are being called to in this life. And one of my first red flags that I found very interesting was because I had that previous experience with that client where I was helping her with her business, so I learned a lot about this stuff, versus what I saw on this podcast is that client, it wasn't that complicated, right? Like, it wasn't that complicated as to why someone would want to partake in this. It wasn't some like spiritual evolution thing. It wasn't like making up a bunch of shit like radical monogamy that is an oxymoron. It doesn't even make sense if you have a third person coming into a marriage that is thereby by definition not monogamy. It wasn't that complicated, right? What that client was teaching for those people who were interested in polyamory. Whereas in this particular situation and this podcast, it was super complicated and convoluted, full of word salad and a bunch of things that literally just didn't make any sense. It was just a bunch of delusional people who believe too much of their own bullshit, at least the men, believe way too much of their own bullshit, basically telling the rest of the world why they are somehow more enlightened for being in this situation. And I know that they said, this works for us, it doesn't mean it'll work for you. But if you're constantly promoting it to thousands and thousands, if not millions of people, then you are ergo kind of selling it, aren't you? So that's one of the things to keep in mind, because when you have that much influence in the world, it comes with a lot of responsibility. And I think that's one of the things that people are calling out. Like, do you, bro? Like, we don't care what kind of constellation you guys want to be in. Just call it for what it is, right? Which is, we're polyamorous, instead of shoving these weird lexicons down our throat that don't make any sense, which, by the way, I'm not saying this is what's going on here, but that is what cults do, is they start creating their own lexicon, is one of the things that happens. It is a form of deception, in other words. And the vibe that we were getting, my husband and I, from watching this is that it was just deception through and through. So that's number one. Number two, they start talking about monogamy. And again, on this channel, we're fans of monogamy, or you probably wouldn't be watching this channel, or you wouldn't have been watching the relationship stuff that I've been putting out up until now. And what I found so weird, and such a logical fallacy, is that the doctor guy that they had there, which apparently has his own checkered past when it comes to relationships. So you guys have to be careful, like, who you pick as mentors, because this is just gross. Like, it was just heebie-jeebies the whole time. He was basically saying, like, there's all these problems in monogamy. Like, 60 to 70% of people in monogamy cheat, for example. And I guess instead of doing the logical thing, which would be like, hey, maybe 60 to 70% of people in monogamy are cheating because people don't know how to be in a relationship with each other, or they're not self-aware, or they don't know how to communicate, or, there's like skills that need to be learned in a relationship in order for it to be successful. Instead of thinking that, instead, the hypothesis that they were proposing was monogamy is the problem for some people. If monogamy just doesn't work, then I'm going to go try this other bullshit that I'm going to try and feed to you as radical monogamy, when if you just take it, I saw somebody doing commentary on this. It was like it was a panel of men who were calling Aubrey out, which was amazing to see men calling him out on his piss poor behavior, especially toward his wife and this young girl. But one of the things that they said was basically like, if you just took this at face value and took all the jargon out of it, this is what it is, right? Homeboy can't keep it in his pants, right? Has an issue with discipline, has an issue with containment within himself, and also has an issue with containment when it comes to women, because the healthy masculine is all about containment, first within himself. Men need to learn discipline, men need to learn control, healthy control, those kinds of things. This dude clearly does not have it when it comes to relationships or sex. And then the wife isn't the one. She's just not. Because if you're the one, you would have been claimed, and we'll talk about her in a second. She ain't it. She is not the one. And now he's bringing this, like, third, much younger woman. Like, if you just take it at its face, at the most basic thing, it's ridiculous, and it's not radical monogamy. It's a tale as old as time. He's not into his wife. He can't keep it in his pants, and he went to go find a younger woman. That's it. That's all this is, right? At the end of the day. Literally, that's it. If you take it at face value and remove all the crazy jargon out of it, right? So that was another big issue that I had, was they were proposing that monogamy as a vehicle is the problem. Monogamy is not a problem. It's been working for us for a very long time. We're also biologically wired for it. So if any man tells you that he's not, it's BS. I was literally just reading a book about the male brain. Men are wired for monogamy. They are. It is in their brains. And again, if you want to check out that book, The Male Brain, I will leave a link to it below so you guys can go check it out, because again, it's just so interesting that I was in the middle of reading this book while this thing came out and exploded in the community. So that was weird. That was already weird. You're making up your own language. You're trying to shove this radical monogamy thing down our throat. There are a lot of red flags of deception here, right? And even men have come out and called out Aubrey for being like, this is actually not healthy masculine behavior. And we'll get into some more ways in which it's not healthy masculine behavior, but I want to talk about the wife, because my heart actually goes out to her in a lot of ways, because so many women find themselves in this situation, and my heart also goes out to the young girl, because she's not that young, she's 29, but she's a lot younger than them. But the young woman also goes out to her, because it just looks so bad, right? And they just keep making it worse, and they just keep digging the grave. So then we get to the wife. And the wife starts talking about, a lot of this podcast was just the wife, who we all know wants monogamy. She has said it over and over and over again for the last few years. She said she would be devastated if her husband ever went back to polyamory, basically telling us about how painful this situation is for her and how she has learned to transcend that. And I'm like, oh my God, she's overriding her own natural, healthy, female biological instincts for safety. That's what she's doing, right? She's deluding herself into thinking that this is safety. It is not safety at all. As soon as you bring another woman into it, you are not in a safe container, period, point blank, end of story. That is how our brains work as women, okay? Period. And what I found so interesting, that with all the spiritual jargon, and again, I'm not saying that's what's going on here, but this is another thing that cults tend to do, is that they will divorce the body from spirituality, and they will forget that we are human animals. They will forget that we are not that different from the animal kingdom. Yes, obviously there are things that separate us, but our biology is set up in a way that has led to the survival and the growth of mankind, and it's for a reason. If it wasn't for the way we were biologically made up as men and women, we literally would not be here. Like, you would not be watching this, because you and I would not be alive if it wasn't for those survival mechanisms. For women, one of those biological instincts, right, is a need for safety. And a lot of women, which I think might be going on here a little bit, confuse that for just money. Right? Because let's be real, if Aubrey Marcus did not have the amount of money that he had, this podcast wouldn't even be a thing, right? None of these women would even be interested, right? Which is fine, because women, biologically, naturally, tend to date equal or up. It's hypergamy, and it's fine, because they're taking care of themselves, because they are the vulnerable ones, they are the ones who end up having offspring. Totally fine, nothing wrong with that. But let's be real that if Aubrey Marcus were broke, none of us would be having this conversation. These women wouldn't even be interested. So in this case, what I think both women actually might be doing is confusing it for financial security and financial safety. The thing is that provision, and I've talked about this multiple times on the podcast before, provision is not just money. Provision is also a container, and we'll talk about the ways he's totally not containing his wife, which shows that he doesn't actually care about what is going on here, or is unaware of what is going on here. So there's that, but it's also emotional safety, it's physical safety, it's resources, yes, okay? What's going on here is that he might have the provision in terms of financially being able to provide for these women, but he's not providing safety in any other way, right? They even said about things where he gets in a fight with his wife and he basically goes to hang out with his girlfriend when they get in a fight. That is not safety to a woman. And what I found in the wife, she was visibly uncomfortable. That's number one. Number two, we know her history of wanting monogamy. She talked about her history of never having experienced monogamy. She talked about her history about in relationships. There was always some level of deception or something like that that would come out of left field, and it was not lost upon me about how the exact same thing is happening to her right now, just on a very global stage. And because her sweet-talking husband, who actually reminds me of the Knight of Cups in the tarot, where it's like the sweet talker and the charmer, but it's not really real in a lot of ways. He's convinced her, oh, because I'm being honest, because I'm in this polyamorous relationship, then there is no deception. But the reality is that there is deception because she is overriding her own instincts as a woman, right? That she's deceiving herself, ultimately, is what it's going on here. And they're all deceiving everybody because, of course, a lot of people were very upset because they saw these two, they kind of put them on a pedestal, which stop putting people on pedestals, y'all just don't do it, they're all human, but they put these people on a pedestal in terms of like, oh, he's like a spiritual guru, and then they're like a really great couple, and I want to be like that couple. I never wanted to be like these two in a couple. The reason why I stopped listening to Aubrey Marcus so long ago is I could tell there was something really disingenuous in the relationship front that just kind of didn't make sense. Turns out I was right. So anyway, they're talking about monogamy, and then here comes a third party that they've had for like a year or two. So people obviously feel deceived in that way. In addition to that, people are expressing their concerns about what is going on, and what do? They do the typical thing where they're like, that's just your projection, stop projecting on me. This is not projection. This is a very large group of humans, all of which are biologically wired for certain things and to be alarmed by certain things, that are saying something is not right. Something is going on here. There is deception here. Your wife looks very unhappy. That is a very young girl that you took into a very intense plant medicine ceremony shortly after meeting her. Your wife has said that she wants monogamy since the entire time you introduced us to her and the whole world. Something, and then you're making up a bunch of words to try and shove this down our throat as if it's some sort of spiritual enlightenment thing. People's, obviously, the red flags are going off left and right because they're so obvious and they're so in your mind. And the good news is that I'm seeing there's a lot of very grounded people in their center who are not overriding their own biological human instincts, who are listening to those biological human instincts, who've probably done work and research on what those biological human instincts are, who are calling out the BS. But what we're being told by these three people is stop projecting on us. We're not projecting, we're just not denying our own biology and our own psychology, which you guys are. That's what's going on here. Or at least that's especially what the wife is doing, for sure. Because this has been so painful for her, and one thing that just like gutted me, and as soon as I heard it, I said this to my husband. She said, you know, in this relationship, I've gone through so many deaths. And I was like, oh my God, this woman is confusing ego deaths, which are a real thing, with sacrificing yourself constantly for somebody who obviously doesn't see you as the one. She's confusing the two. She is overriding her own instincts as a woman who wants safety, who wants monogamy, who wants to be claimed. For what reason, I don't know. But it's heartbreaking to see it. And it's so obvious when you see this whole, like, even the way they were sitting was weird. So that's the next thing. That's the wife. Now let's get to the young girl who comes into this relationship, because this is also where my alarm bells started going off. Oh, one more thing, actually, about the wife. So he said, you know, if my wife wants to go date whoever she wants, you know, she had a lover for like a year. It's great. Two things stood out to me. Number one, the wife said, I haven't really felt the need to go take on other lovers the same way that Aubrey, my husband, has. And I'm like, yeah, no shit, because you're not wired for it. like, we're not wired for it. That's number one. And then number two, the other thing that was interesting was he kept saying how she had this lover. And one of the things that I was reading about in this book, The Male Brain, which goes through how the male brain develops, testosterone, like what's happening as they're developing and the different stages that go through their brain, what's the healthy behavior, what's not the healthy behavior. And then this was confirmed by a lot of the men who came out and called Aubrey to account, was that healthy males are territorial, right? They are territorial about their loved ones because they are wired to protect and provide, and they're territorial about their work. That's like their kingdom, their dominion, right? If your man is out here telling you you can go sleep with whoever you want, you are not the one, because he is not being territorial about you. You have not been claimed. And for a woman that all she desires is to be claimed, this is extraordinarily painful. And for any woman who has experienced that, and is now watching this, the pain's written all over her face. Okay, and again, this is just my opinion, but it seems that most people have come to the same conclusion. There are lots of red flags going on here, and at least we're having a very good discussion. But she's overriding her instincts as a woman. She's overriding her instincts for safety. She's overriding her instincts for wanting to be claimed. She's overriding her instincts for companionship. And something happened to Aubrey where he did not develop the way that he was supposed to, right? I don't know what, right? But there was another really interesting resource that I found while this was going on, and it kind of corroborated a lot of what I was reading in that book. His name is Brandon Bozarth, right? Excellent stuff, really interesting content on polarity in relationships, but he talks a lot about biology and how we're wired and how we're made up and how our brains develop and all that kind of stuff, really fascinating stuff. So he had done this panel with a group of men, and one of the things that all these three men said, and my husband was like, they're right, because I feel the same way, is that a healthy man provides containment. A healthy man is territorial. When a man experiences something, right, where his maleness is somehow, I don't want to say compromised, right, while he's developing and growing up, and the book corroborated this, essentially what happens is he has a massive drop in testosterone. And when he has a massive drop in testosterone, he essentially starts having like a female brain. So what happens when a man is looking through the world through a female brain because he doesn't have enough testosterone, coincidentally, apparently Aubrey takes testosterone to replace some of his, is that what ends up happening is a lot of these healthy male instincts go offline. The territorial, offline. Protect and provide, offline. Containment, offline. And what's going on with Audrey, he's thinking like a woman, right? Which makes a whole lot of sense because of the poetry and the creativity and again, very like Knight of Cups type of energy for those of you who are into tarot. And if you are wounded feminine, which I'm taking a wild guess that these two women are, just based on what it is that we know. Obviously, I don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but at least what's being displayed is wounded feminine publicly. Is wounded feminine, you're going to very easily fall for stuff like that. Very easily fall for it. You're going to override your own instincts. You're not going to trust yourself, right? His wife does not trust herself at all, or she wouldn't be in this situation, and she wouldn't be replaying the same story over and over and over again, just now in the most public way she's ever had to deal with it. And I hope this is a wake-up call so that eventually she ends up choosing herself. Okay, now let's go into the young woman, I should say. Much younger than them. Met them on Raya, which is like some people say it's a dating app for gold diggers. I don't know if that's true or not, but my husband looked it up and he's like, this is where gold diggers go find men with money. I'm not saying that this is what this young woman is doing. It's just funny. So anyway, the story goes that Aubrey is working out at the gym. Oh yeah, pump and iron. And then he gets the intuition to get on his phone and go on this dating app because he's going to meet someone that day. And then he meets Alana, right? Which Balana, the whole thing is so creepy and weird. They kind of like, you can't like, he obviously had to type, and then, Valana, they go out to lunch, right? And then by the second time that they're meeting, if I'm remembering correctly, they already have her in like a very intense plant ceremony. Guys, I have studied holistic healing. I've studied a lot of this stuff here in Mexico from my teachers here. My husband had done plant medicine before we had even ever met. We've been warned by a lot of our teachers here in Mexico, plant medicine is not something that you do casually or willy-nilly. You don't even need to be doing it that often, okay? And you have to be very careful about who you do it with. So a red flag has gone off in terms of like apparently how much plant medicine is going on here because they are psychedelics. And number two, the fact that they just met this girl and they already had her in a plant medicine ceremony. My husband saw that, read that, and immediately his protector instinct went up, and he's like, wait a minute, so he's drugging these women? Like, that's what's going on here? And he knows about plant medicine because he's done it before. It's just, my husband's protector instinct immediately came online and was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Right? At least that is what they are showing us publicly. So that's already a red flag. The other red flag is that she had admitted that she was in a lost place in her life. She was going through career transitions. She was coming out of relationships. So she was like in a vulnerable place while this was going on. She also shared some really sad stuff later where in this constellation, which I don't know why people keep calling this a constellation. I'm like, you mean a throuple? You mean you're polyam? Can we just call this stuff for what it is? Do we need to keep adding all this fancy terminology to make ourselves feel better about what we're doing? Like, do we really need to be doing that? Can we bring it back down to earth? But she was saying, one of the things that's interesting is like, and that's challenging for me is when I go to bed alone, because obviously they're married, so I'm going to bed by myself. I'm like, there's another woman who's overriding her instincts for companionship and stuff like that. And, a lot of people are saying, she's really young. She's too young to know the repercussions of this. She ain't that young. She's 29, okay? If she was 21, I'd be like, oh, yeah, she has no idea what she's doing. 29? You've had a little bit more life experience in terms of what might be going on here. But let's give the benefit of the doubt, right, and say she has no idea what is going on here, and she doesn't understand the repercussions of what she's getting herself into because she's so young, and there is a reality that there is a clear power imbalance between Aubrey and these two women. That is obvious, so we have to call that out as well. I mean, it just looks really bad, and there's red flags all over the place. And the fact that they try to tell us that this is somehow healthy and what works for them. The only thing I see is three very wounded people who all attracted each other and are trying to convince themselves that this is what they want. Clearly, the wife does not want this. I mean, that is so obvious. The amount of mental gymnastics she needs to do to even be okay with this. And one of the other things that my husband pointed out was, why does he keep doing this to his wife? If he knows that she wanted monogamy and she's not the, number one, if you have a problem with being monogamous, why get married? Why even get married? So that was number one. Then number two, the other thing that came out was, if you know that your wife has wanted monogamy this whole time, why do you keep putting her through this, and why are you doing it publicly unless you're getting some sort of sick, twisted pleasure out of it? That's what my husband said. He goes, that doesn't make sense unless you're trying to manipulate people. So again, my husband's protector instincts were going all the way off to the point where we could only get halfway through it and he couldn't take it anymore because of what he was seeing and what he was experiencing. And, based on the research I was doing in reading The Male Brain, I believe that's what it's called, The Male Brain, I'll leave the link below, Aubrey Marcus is not acting in a healthy male way. He's just not. And these women are probably in wounded feminine energy, and because they're in wounded feminine energy, they're just buying his bullshit just as much as he's buying his own bullshit. Now, I don't know what traumas these people have been through. Obviously, they're playing out in real time for the whole world to see. My hope and my wish is that this is a lesson for people in the spiritual community. Do not allow yourself to get gaslit by people who are basically like, oh, we're on some sort of higher spiritual realm, and this is where humanity is moving to with relationships. If you want monogamy, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. If you want to be claimed as a woman, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. And if some asshole keeps telling you, hey, you just have to keep pushing your edges, you just have to transcend this, he's playing you. That's the vibe that I'm getting from this. Maybe not consciously, right? Let's hope that this is all totally unconscious and it's three very not self-aware people that is happening here. Let's just pray that that's what's going on. Otherwise, this is going to get really dark really fast in a lot of ways. Let's just pray that it's unintegrated, unhealed people who maybe are doing a little bit too many psychedelics and buying their own bullshit. Oh, final thing. I forgot to mention this part, which was also wild, which was when Aubrey said that they were in Egypt or something, again, I think doing plant medicine. I'm like, how many times have y'all done plant medicine throughout this whole story? Because like there's no inclination where like the plant medicine wasn't there, and I'm like, maybe y'all need to lay off the psychedelics a little bit. And again, from our teachers here in Mexico, that's not stuff you want to mess with. It's not stuff you do casually. It's not even anything you need to do that often. Okay? And then, well, anyway, he was saying how he's in the temple of Isis, and he gets this direct message from God. And I'm like, oh, where have we heard this before? Right? In spiritual communities, where I'm already waiting for it. I'm like, I know what's coming. Where he's like, yeah, I was told that I need to have children with both of these women. And I'm like, oh my God, not like we haven't seen that before, right? In call leaders and things like that. Not radical monogamy, tale as old as time, basically. And again, that goes back to this is not normal male behavior because there's no containment here. And men do have bonding hormones that allow them to be monogamous as well. Some have more than others, this is true, right? But they do have bonding hormones that have them, have a propensity toward monogamy. And if that's not developing, something's off kind of a thing, or something happened where it's a little bit off. And again, right, both of these women, especially his wife, overriding their own instincts, overriding their own biology, overriding their own psychology, which is there to keep us safe. And that was probably one of the most alarming things I noticed, is how they just kept overriding their bodies. A woman's body knows, okay, whether or not she is safe, and she needs to learn to listen to it. And what I'm seeing here is that his wife is like neck up, totally. She is just, I don't know if he gaslit her or she gaslit herself into thinking this is a good idea and that this is somehow her transcending her wounds. No, girl, we're seeing your wound play out, on a global stage. That's what's going on. And again, my heart goes out to her, and maybe I'm sounding a little bit rough, because it's not that I feel like other people have been too soft on this whole situation, but I do see a lot of apologizing in terms of like, I don't want to judge them. And I'm here like, no, discernment is a good thing, okay? I think we should be discerning about this situation, and we should be calling out the red flags, and we should be, listening to our own instincts that are, again, have been there this whole time, to make sure that the human race continues existing, basically. It's our own safety mechanisms coming in to tell us something's off. And, they've gaslit themselves, they've gaslit each other, and now they're just trying to gaslight us. And sometimes, unfortunately, when women are in this situation that particularly the wife is in, I don't know about the younger one, I feel like she might have an easier out, but particularly the wife, they're not going to be ready to leave that until they're ready to leave that. And women can tell them whatever the hell that it is that they want. They've built up a shield where her ego is protecting her in some way from feeling the pain that she's going through right now. So sometimes in order to get through to that ego, sometimes we just got to call a spade a spade. That's it. Now, I'm not saying that this video is going to get through to her. I don't know the woman. But sometimes you just got to call a spade a spade. That's it, right? And I see a lot of apologizing going on online for people having very real human red flag instincts going off about this. And I'm very happy to see not just women. Women immediately started calling this out. But when I started seeing men stepping up publicly, very conscious men publicly stepping up to hold this man accountable, that's when I was like, okay, that feels really good. Thank you, men. For protecting the women in this situation. And again, my prayer and my hope is that these people are just unaware of what is going on and what they're doing. I hope Aubrey is just, again, not self-aware of what is happening. That's like best case scenario. Worst case scenario is really dark and ugly. So I hope that that's not what's actually going on here. And I hope that they're able to find their healing and find their way to a healthier space, because this ain't it. But maybe, right, this vehicle is, and this chaos, because I think the pushback that they're getting is not necessarily what they expected, is what leads them in that direction. Okay, that's all I have to say about this subject. I hope you guys found this helpful. Long story short, don't believe men. who are having you override your own instincts as a woman. They're probably trying to manipulate you in some way. If you're a woman, there's nothing wrong with you. If you want monogamy, if you want safety, if you want to be claimed, that is completely normal and completely natural. And 3, if you want to get better at relationships and understanding what healthy dynamics actually are, learn about your brain, right? Learn about the female brain, learn about the male brain, learn about how our bodies work, learn about polarity, which I'm going to be talking more about this stuff on this channel because as I had recently said, I love talking about spiritual topics, but I love also grounding them in reality. And I think what's going on in this situation is there's so much delusion and zero grounding in reality. So I'm going to be talking more about this stuff from a research science-based perspective, because I don't think that spirituality and your body and your mind have to be separate, and you get into some very dangerous places when you start doing that, which is exactly what we're seeing in this situation. So hope you guys enjoyed this. For those of you who were asking, here it is, and I will catch you guys on the next one.